wear this outfit, I feel like the female protagonist of a Hallmark Christmas movie at the beginning of the movie. When I was a sophomore in high school, I moved to a new school and tried to make friends by socializing and telling people fun stories about myself. And long story short, the entire cross-country team thought I was a pathological liar. I once had a pet chicken that I named Bob. She got eaten by a coyote. I found her feet in my front yard the next day. In third grade, all the kids in my grade got assigned historical characters that they got to be for a day, and so they got to dress up and write a speech and read a book about them and tell everyone all they knew about them, and all of my friends were princesses. And I got Martin Luther, the monk. My first word was knife. At this point in my life, I have been in 2 car chases. Well, I wasn't the one being chased. I don't know how to explain this. I have been an aunt ever since I was 12.
One time I dropped my fish down the garbage disposal.
My older brother got asked to be in High School Musical 4 the very first time they were planning on making it, and he turned them down. Then they didn't end up making it. I also auditioned to be in Moana and High School Musical 4. Clearly didn't get either of those. The same older brother once ate my pet goldfish while it was still alive. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I was Vine famous, but at one point in time, Disney re-vined one of my vines and it got a lot of views. When I was a senior in high school, I went to pick up a friend from his house, and a girl in my grade lived in the house next door, and when I pulled up, she and all of her friends came out and got in my car and stared at me, and I just stared back at them until one of them said, "Wait, are you our Uber?" And then I said no, and then they glared at me and got out and slammed the doors, and they didn't realize who I was until one of them saw me in math class the next day. The boys at my middle school started this fun game where they would bring needles to school and they would hollow out their pens and shoot them at each other across the classroom. And one kid inhaled a needle and had to go to the hospital, and then they banned pens. My sister had a teacher in high school that she hated, and so did everyone else, and so her entire class once orchestrated it where for a whole class period, there was no silence. Someone was always coughing or sneezing or sniffing or something, and the teacher caught on and got so mad that he called the principal, and the principal yelled at him in the hallway saying that it was rude of him to accuse kids of plotting against him when it was just allergy season. But he was right. They were plotting against him. Over the course of my life, I personally have owned over 70 cats. One time on New Year's Eve, we heard gunshots, and so we called the police, and they went over next door to the elderly woman and said, "Ma'am, have you heard gunshots?" And she said no. And mind you, this whole time, we're panicking. We ran, 'cause we lived in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere, so if there were gunshots, they were coming for us. And so we had driven as fast as we could 20 miles away to the nearest restaurant, which I believe was a TGI Fridays, and they asked her if she'd heard any gunshots, and she said no, and they said, "Ma'am, are you sure?" And she said no. I did actually hear some earlier now that I think about it. I thought I heard some people hunting on my property, so I took my .22 outside and I fired 3 rounds in the air to scare them away. But I didn't hear anything. And they said, "Ma'am, you can't do that!" A girl in my English class in 6th grade licked our teacher when she wasn't looking. I don't remember why. As a child, apparently I could speak fluent French. I have no memory of this. I didn't start going to school until 4th grade. I was homeschooled before that. And then the second week of school, the kid who sat next to me threw up on me. As a child, I once ate a live frog and then threw it up into my babysitter's hand. At one point in time in my youth, I was on an airplane, and long story short, we were supposed to have a head-on collision with another plane, so we had to dive to miss it, and afterwards everyone on the plane was just sitting there in stunned silence, and tiny Sarah Grace yelled, "Woo! Who's up for round 2?" One time there was another girl named Sarah Grace who I was racing against in track, and so as I ran past on the second lap, my dad yelled, "Come on, Sarah Grace! Prove you are the alpha!" He doesn't remember this, but I do. Back when I was a high schooler, I played Frenchie in Grease, and for one of our performances of Beauty School Dropout, the guy who was the angel forgot to come on stage. My older sister was briefly a professor at a community college, and at one point in time, one of her students brought a fake gun to class for a debate to prove his point. And when I told that story to my friends, they said, that couldn't possibly happen. A fake gun wouldn't make it through security. What?